Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's time now to review headlines on today's newspapers with the Ombudsman of This Day and Arise Media Group. And This Day Newspaper Limited's Group Executive Director, Kyari, a.k.a. Mr. KK. How are you doing today? I was saying you are green with envy. I love the color.
Thank you so much, Kashi.
It is good to see you
this
morning.
Good morning,
KK.
Yeah. Good morning.
I would say it's Green Revolution.
Green Revolution. Okay.
All green today.
Thank you very much.
Some of us will wait till October 1st to go all green.
All green.
But this is beautiful, so I have to copy.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's go into the newspaper review, KK. We'll start, of course, with the newspaper record this day on Sunday. Let's take it from top to bottom, just like last Sunday, and I believe just like yesterday too. The window story has been on the positive side, from the economic side, from financial market. Here we have Zenith Bank, 9 others begin 2025 on positive momentum. Report 1.83 trillion profit in Q1 of 2005. Some people who are funny will say that money is nothing, but then we will say money is flowing, apparently, within the banks. But then, like we said the other time, nominal value of money is the same thing as, the purchasing power of the majority of Nigerians. But this is a positive one on the window story of this day today. And then the strip just below that window story, it's a regard to Pa Adebanjo, and the headline says, Obasanjo, Oshibajo, Obi, Abiodun, Daniel, Amosun, Cardoso, others bid farewell to Afenifere leader Pa Adebanjo. That story is on page 5, I believe, and that's to bid farewell to the late Pa Adebanjo, who passed on earlier this year, and I think it was his final rite of passage, I believe, was it on Friday or yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay. All right. And then there's a story on, beside the first picture on the cover of This Day today. In Katsina, Tinubu vows to secure forests, enhance surveillance in Northwest. That story is on the cover of a number of other papers. I think Tribune also led with it. And of course, the main story itself, Mele Kyari, I'm ready to give account of my service, denies arrest. I'm sure that this is in response to the viral stories that that is going around, talking about the fact that Mele Kyari and a few other MDs of the refineries, Warri, Port Harcourt, etc., may have been arrested by EFCC, and that a probe may have started, and the need to give account is essential. So here we have the immediate past GMD of NNPC Limited, Mele Kyari, saying that he's ready to give account of his service, and he's saying that he has not been arrested. Maybe he has been invited to, to speak to the EFCC. We do not have the details yet, but KK, this is what he's saying. And the main picture, of course, I believe is about the Pa Adebanjo that we spoke about, paying last respect to Pa Adebanjo, and we have the Ogun State governor there. We have the former president, Obasanjo, with members of the family of the late Pa Adebanjo. The former governor of Ogun State, Ibikunle Amosun, is also on the cover. Those are the stories on the cover of today's This Day on Sunday, KK.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Should we start?
Or would you like us to just quickly review the style too and then go at once, or would you like to review?
The style comes after this.
Okay, so you can just copy in your assessment, yes.
Yeah. So we'll start with the grand farewell to Pa Adebanjo, the Afenifere leader, and one of the greatest disciples of the sage, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Again, it was such a great thing that just as he was honored while he was alive, by his contemporaries and the generation before him, that in his death his memory has received such a huge honor. Perhaps the only thing to say here is that it's a reminder, the fact that this man had been active in politics since his teenage days, as he records in his memoirs, as it is, and till he died, as an Nigerian. He was never president, he was never governor, not senator, or House of Rep member, or House of Assembly. He never held any public office. Yet, in terms of relevance, in terms of being of political consequence, he was a man of political consequence. You could not deny that. So that should remind one of what Dr. Pa Adebanjo, what he calls the office of the citizen. So you could see that the office which Pa Adebanjo held was the office of the citizen, which, according to Dr. Utomi, is perhaps the most powerful, for all
office in the land.
All the office, So it should, his death, should inspire. I mean, his life, rather his life and times, should inspire people that we all do not have to be president or to be governors or to be senators, to be of political consequence, to be able to make impact. On the polity, in the political economy, and in the social space, So he's so rest in peace, So it was such a great thing that he was so honored and that he received a grand farewell. Now, so maybe I agree with you completely, Steve, that the window story is a positive story, coming from the financial sector of the economy.
Yeah.
That you have 10 deposit money banks, posting before tax profit of 1.8 trillion naira, such good news.
In the first quarter of the year.
In the first quarter, in the first quarter of 2025, just in the first quarter, the combined profit of those 10 financial giants in the economy, is 1.8 trillion. Good news. But that also should inspire other sectors of the economy that, or rather, that should, whet our appetite, that we expect such good news from other sectors, especially the industrial sector, those who are engaged in producing the consumer goods, the things that we use daily, those who produce food, those who are involved in the production of food, a provision of housing, the provision of goods, all those things that who are actually engaging in direct production, that it is important that, the result of economic management should be that we should receive such good news. And also a reminder to this bank that at the end of the day, for all strip of all the technicalities and all the jargon, the purpose of banking is to render financial service, is to the economy, that we should also be, the metrics should go beyond these huge profits by banks, but they should be able to point to industrialists, startups, that have been financed, by these banks, and they are doing well, in production, So I think the time should come, in Nigerian economy, whereby you'll be able to measure the success of a bank, by pointing to the fact that, this sector, whether it's the steel sector, whether it's agri sector, whether it is textile, different sectors, or tech, that it is this bank, that, supported, that, provided loans, and services to those who are engaged in productive activities, that we should also use that parameters, to measure the success.
I think it's also a strong signal to the stipulation from CBN requiring the banks to reconsolidate. And I think that the target is next year's December. So if 10 banks are posting for Q1 of 2025 1.83 trillion naira profit before, is it before tax? Profit before tax.
Profit before tax.
Before tax. Yeah. I think that's a strong indication that maybe a good chunk of the banks are in good stead to meet the target. for next year as far as recapitalization is concerned. Even though there are small talks here and there about the likelihood of a few banks coming together, to meet the target. But at least if we have 10 saying that we've started the year on a good note, if they end well and start next year, on a similarly perhaps better way, it will be an indication that many of our banks may ultimately pass the stress test, that this recapitalization and reconsolidation is all about.
Okay.
Absolutely. That we should also take the story of the president visit to Katsina. It's significant, in terms of security, and I think it is in terms of confidence building, to build confidence in the system, and also to raise the morale, of the security and armed forces. Why significant? Because I remember when the president arrived in Katsina, I think he addressed, the troops, security people, and then gave them some, pep talk,
He did.
Yeah, and that you could go there because Katsina is one of the areas where you can talk about you're having very serious, security challenges. That is, if you take Katsina to be in a generic terms for northwest, So I think it's legitimate, for people to also expect that very soon the president will also be able to pay a visit,
similar visits
to other zones, where you have challenges, in order to boost, confidence, as the commander-in-chief, actually to also a way of actually seeing things on ground, and also to, raise the morale of the gallant men and women who are working, very hard, in the security sector, to ensure that the country is safe, for everybody, Yeah.
We discussed the president's visit to Katsina, yesterday,
Yes.
And I like the fact that, the communication that is coming out is to show the aspect of, him talking to the troops, being concerned about security in Nigeria, saying that no inch of the Nigerian land will be ceded to terrorists, even though he admitted the fact that, the fight is tough, and that it might be a long haul. I think it was important for him to speak to issues around insecurity, so that the narrative around his visit would not end with him attending a wedding by the daughter of the governor.
That is very important. I agree with you.
Yeah, I also like that, he was very specific to say that he's going to secure forests and enhance surveillance in the Northwest. I think this now also speaks to the kidnappings as well that happened, I think, and it shows that there's an awareness that there's several issues, apart from outright killings, there's banditry, there's kidnappings that are also going on. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing that he this did come out, especially in light of the conversation of the wedding as to priorities, but then away from comments being made and promises being given out there based on the political landscape in Nigeria right now. There's a lot of belief that 2027 is almost partly sorted, according to a lot of our political leaders and their chosen alliances. So let's hope that this is something that can be done in the first term, and it's not going to be a promise that we'll have to wait a little longer to see. It will be nice to see this happen soon.
All right.
Thank you.
So do we go to This Day Style?
Yeah. This Day Style. Yeah.
Okay, This Day Style. Let's get to that. Now, I really love the cover for This Day Style today. We're looking at the Minister of Women Affairs. You were absolutely apt with that. Honorable Iman Suleiman Ibrahim. She is the beautiful cover on This Day Style today. Pretty in pink, as I would like to call it. The story goes on to just basically emphasize that she is a leader like no other, a dynamic force whose work and vision have touched countless lives, a passionate advocate for women, children, and vulnerable communities. She has dedicated over 2 decades of her life to advancing social development, migration, governance, and conflict resolution. Just recently, in Lagos, Nigeria, there was an event that was held in celebration of Workers' Day. That was, several people were a part of that meeting. And she was there to celebrate Nigerian women who are equally within the workforce, to encourage them as well. And she's also very big on gender equality development. She says, listen, it's not a favor, it is imperative. It's important that, you know, equality development is seen as a priority and not just something that is being given to women as a favor, you know. So she's definitely a strong woman, and it's really beautiful to see her on the cover, as well as everything else. For people looking to take a look at what's in style, from the interviews to the fashion, you can find that online at thisdaylive.com or thisdaystyle.com as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful cover. Pretty in pink, as you said.
I said that, pretty in pink. I love the turban, you know. It reminds me of the ting on wrap. It's a beautiful piece. Rewriting the gender equation.
Okay. Any thoughts on?
I agree. It's another great edition from the desk of This Day Style. You know, I think it's very rich in content, and also the story of the Honorable Minister and cover very topical. You know, well, all that can add now is that we wish her well. You know. In our mission, not just only to articulate the gender policy for the country, but also ensure that there is a very effective, you know, and honest implementation, you know, such that at the end of our tenure, you know, we should be able to say that, you know, the issues of gender inequality, you know, gender oppression, you know, and gender injustice, you know, must have, you know, been reduced, you know, I mean, substantially. So we wish her well.
We wish her well.
It's a great addition from Disney Style.
Lovely to look at. All right, let's go to the Punch. The cover is loaded, quite a number of interesting stories, you know, not just about the Obasanjo Shibajo leading the tributes at Adebanjo's burial, but there are a number of stories, starting from the lead, which says 2027 PDP governors strike deal with Wike. Inside FCT Minister PDP reps meeting in Lagos. And then another rider, Atiku kicks as party chieftains want ex-VP out of presidential race. Atiku, the main factor in PDP, you know, is still being talked about. But there are a few other political stories on the cover of Punch. On the right side of the window over there, fresh storm hits Wike Fubara peace talks. Initially, a lot of people, you know, I mean, we were hearing about the fact that it looks like there might be reconciliation. Some people said that, you know, there was a meeting, and then all of a sudden we heard about, you know, Wike allegedly saying that, you know, Fubara might be sponsoring people against the president and against the, you know, the first lady, and you know, allegations and counter-allegations here and there. One other important political story: opposition governors reconsider move to APC. That's on the strip below the paper. But a few other stories that I'm sure that KK, you know, I don't know if you might want to touch on it. Okay, first will be how U.S. Yoruba village sparked row between Alaafin and Ooni of Ife. Alaafin of Oyo, you know, the newly, you know, minted Alaafin Owode, and the Ooni of Ife, or Jaja, you know, the second. I think it has to do with the event where Ooni came a bit late, and Alaafin, people were questioning his reluctance, apparent reluctance to, you know, maybe show courtesy or camaraderie to the Alaafin by standing up, you know, to greet him. But of course, you know what that breeds is the age-old rivalry in Kud between Ife and Oyo, and between Alaafin's stool and Ooni of Ife's stool. But of course, you know, I mean, people shouldn't create unnecessary row, you know, between these two, you know. But I think that there was a reaction from the Alaafin's palace that, you know, tried to put things in perspective. You know, let's see how that goes. Another story there: why translators chose Eshu for Satan in Yoruba Bible. That's coming, I believe, from the General Secretary of the Bible Society of Nigeria, BSN, Sanusi. That's also an interesting discussion It's been there for long. You know, people say that the issue.
Highly philosophical.
I know the Satan, but then during translation, you know, one thing led to the other, and the word that was chosen as the translation for Satan was Eshu, whereas Eshu, the Yoruba god of karma, Yoruba god of justice, you know, it's not seen as Lucifer or evil.
Not a demon.
Not exactly, not the devil. You know, but you know, interesting things. One more other story, maybe one or two more. 20,000 asylum seekers await registration in Nigeria. Asylum seekers. That's according to a report published on the page 5 of today's Punch. And then an 80-year-old, that's on a sad note, 80-year-old Colombian dies after 4 months in Lagos hotel. You know, those two stories, I'm sure they are placed together because you're talking about a Colombian dying in Nigeria and then 20,000 asylum seekers awaiting registration in Nigeria. We have those that are jackpying elsewhere, but then here we are, 20,000 people, you know, waiting for asylum. Those are the stories, KK. Which one would you like to touch on?
It's a potpourri. So maybe
it's a potpourri.
maybe we should
punchy too.
Yeah, punchy, very punchy, from political to spiritual to cultural and historical, and you know, very rich, a very rich cover
for a Sunday read.
Sunday read, yeah. That's, maybe we'll take first the Rivers story, you know, because it's you know, and in this, I mean, the story is speculative largely from what I could say, that that the supposed process of reconciliation between the Honorable Minister of FCT, Chief Nyesom Wike, and the governor of the suspended governor of Rivers, Governor Fubara, you know. Yet that it should be encouraged, and I think that, you know, that all well-wishers, stakeholders, you know, elders, whether they are recognized by Wike or not, and others, you should not give up, you know, ensure that within the 6 months, you know, of the emergency rule, you know, imposed, you know, on the states, that they will be able to sort out, you know, and reconcile and sort out their differences. In other words, they should not give room for any extension of the, you know, of the emergency rule after 6 months. You know, that even if it is possible, that the reconciliation should be such that the before the end of the 6 months, you know, that the president perhaps may have cause to reconsider his position and say that Governor Fubara should go back to his office. And in saying so, you know, one needs to remind both parties, you know, that is assuming there are only 2 parties to the dispute in Rivers State, that just barely 2 years ago, Governor Fubara and Minister Wike, you know, were perhaps, you know, best of political allies, you know. Yes.
5 and 6.
5 and 6, you know. Yes, you know, one being the benefactor of the other, and you know, so that you could call them, you know, I mean, collaborators, you know, in politics, in what they do. So I mean, there is no disagreement that, you know, should be beyond resolution if you have mutual good faith, you know, from both sides, that it is important that both of them, you know, really the 2 principal characters, Wike and Fubara, you know, that they should at least ponder, you know, just their relationship just barely 2 years ago, you know, and I should be able to see, you know, some positives, you know, that will encourage them to see, and then see how they could reconcile, you know, and any differences, such that the emergency rule will end in Rivers State, and then things will go back to normalcy, and the purpose for which the Rivers people, you know, voted in 2023, you know, will be achieved. That is to vote in a governor, you know, that will implement policies in the, I mean, for the public good, you know, of the people of Rivers State. You know, I think it should be encouraged. You know, like I said, the other story, there are things that you have to go for. Instance, the Allah affair and I mean, it's, like you rightly said, Steve, and you know better. You know, there's an age-old this in between. If and Oyo, you know, yes, the Allah affair, there was the head of the Oyo Empire, which was essentially a sort of military rule on Yoruba land people. But then it is never in dispute that the origin, the source, you know, I mean, that the Ife is the source, you know. So I think perhaps we cannot say that there will ever be an end to the debate, you know. What is the point?
But people should be careful when they, you know, when they delve into the issue of superiority and things like that. I don't think that you know that
it's of any consequence.
Exactly. More so that there are two states now. When it's just one state, and there was this thing between who should be the head of the old Oyo State's Council of Chiefs, you know, that was a problem between the Alafi and the Oni of Ife. But of course, when Ife went to Oshun and Oyo remained in Oyo, there really shouldn't be any clash. But I get the point that you made.
You're quite on point, yeah?
Yeah, I get the point that you made about Ife being the source and Yoruba, I'm sorry, Oyo being the military kind of empire. But in terms of being on the throne, we also know, you know, I mean, there's a lot that you can read about, you know, one being more of a spiritual head, you know, rather than the king as such, and the other one, you know. But those are things
I'm afraid Steve is talking as an Ibadan man and Oyo. So that's the Oyo-centric view of this story.
Kiki, where are you going there?
Let's get into the nation.
Okay. That's the Oyo-centric version of the story.
Kashi's slightly amused about this.
I am slightly. Now, Sunday's The Nation, or we could actually take a look.
Do we have The Guardian?
I do not think we have The Guardian. Okay, you know what? Let's just continue with The Nation. This is on insecurity. How we'll recover lost territories from bandits. To be honest, we see very similar stories on The Nation and on The Punch as well. The story on insecurity, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Katsina State. Army battles ISWAP in Yobe following attack on Buni Gari. And of course, Benue may defy House Representative of a summons. And then, of course, the River State story is equally here as well. We see in Rivers, Wike slams Fubara over walkout at Women's Empowerment Program. There is a conversation on the social media space. The federal government dares Meta to shut Facebook and Instagram down in Nigeria. Insist the $290 million fine must be paid. I think we can just take a look at these three, so we can also take a look at the Guardian today on Sunday.
Vanguard.
The Vanguard, apologies, the Vanguard, yeah.
Let's take the two together so that
we can take the, okay, great. So for the Sunday Vanguard, well, again, terror. And it's written boldly in red. 3 states record 26 attacks, 227 deaths in 4 months. This is on page 27. The Army captain, 22 soldiers, 2 policemen, about 100 farmers, fishermen amongst the dead people. 6 military formations targeted. The Sheho of Borno, 3 local government areas under terrorist total control. Governor Zulum identifies critical haven for insurgents, asks military to go after them. And 4 soldiers killed in fresh Boko Haram raid in Yobe. Just terror. That's the best way to describe it. Of course, there are more stories. Again, we see the River State story in the Sunday Vanguard. Tinubu under pressure to reinstate Fubara May 29th. Okay, that's on page 5. We see the $2.96 billion alleged fraud. EFCC expands NNPCL probe. We also see the farewell to Pa Adebanjo. You know, we see that story. We also have a story from Can. Can warns on killings, refrain from acts that could destabilize the nation. Yeah, I think these are the, you know, I would say the stories that have really stood out. Every other story, as we would see, the Wike attacking Fubara over the walkout on Tinubu's wife. Rivers women saying they never walked out. It's also in the Nation. In fact, in the Nation, the 27th Honorable Commissioner for Health in Rivers State, Dr. Adeze Ore Chidima, had to come out to say that this never happened. They are rejecting the baseless allegations involving any kind of walkout or protest against the sole administrator. And finally, Tinubu says we will take over the Northwest forests.
Okay, that's a bumper harvest there from the Nation and Sunday Vanguard.
Yeah, like Kashi rightly observed, so that some of the stories we've talked in the earlier, on the front pages of the other newspapers. Maybe we should just look at this story, the economic story of the fine on Meta, by the Consumer Protection, Agency.
$219 million fine.
Yeah, it's a bit ironic, that within Nigeria people that could have voices, questioning, the regulatory step, taken by, a government agency to protect Nigerian consumers, just as it happens in other jurisdictions. Only a few days ago, Ireland, fined TikTok, millions of dollars, and every now and then here in the UK, in the US, and other jurisdictions, these tech giants, are fine. The principle is that what we can insist upon is that there must be due process, and in this case, it is unimpeachable that the due process was taken. The matter was resolved by the Consumer Protection Tribunal, established by law of Nigeria. So I think it will be quite absurd. Yeah. To see Nigeria, calling, on government to reverse, a position, legally taken, by a regulatory agency based on the basis of Nigerian law. In particular, what I'm saying is that there is a very strong voice from the private sector. More or less, they're blackmailing that. If the fine, is sustained, it is paid, then it will Meta could pull out of Nigeria or whatever. But my point is that when tech giants are fined in the US, in Europe and elsewhere, they don't pull out. Why should it be that it's in Nigeria that you say the laws should not be obeyed?
Absolutely, so, I agree with you, KK, because the way that the Sunday Telegraph puts it is that federal government is saying to Meta, quitting Nigeria won't absolve you of liability. Because we've been reading, on X, on different places saying that, we will leave Nigeria, blah, blah, blah. So this is, the Tunji Bello-led government agency saying that even if you quit, you are still liable, and that's important. But before we go, KK, I think it's important to quickly look at Sunday Telegraph. Two interesting stories. One, on the window, Nigeria missing as 8 OPEC plus countries increase oil production, which was part of what we discussed, yesterday. A 2 million barrel per day target for this year, for the budget, and then 3 million by 2030. The other story concerns our profession. It says World Press Freedom Day, which was, yesterday. We're developing framework on use of AI. That's the minister, Idris, in his contribution to the World Press Freedom Day. And then IPI Nigeria calls for protection, better remuneration for journalists. I brought up this topic because this is a time that, many people are saying a lot of things, some interesting, some pure balderdash about who should be recognized as a journalist, who is just an ordinary OAP. Maybe they will say that Kachi, who read law, and has been in the newsroom for 9 years, that maybe she's just an OAP, or they might say that, you and I are media practitioners and not journalists. So this speaks to the type of people that we yield important platforms to to talk nonsense, to talk low on the profession that they have contributed little to. I think it is, so on a WordPress, Freedom Day, it is important to revisit things like that and ask people to read the act that they are referring to in almost in an illiterate manner, because it is important to know that who a journalist is not in contention. KK, if
Thank you.
Absolutely, Steve. You put it very well. I think, like you said, the debate is largely dominated by ignorance, and also a type of illiteracy, about the nature of the media, and also the status, of the profession of who is, Many years ago, when there used to be very robust, debate within the industry, that question was long settled.
Long settled.
Yes, I think I'm talking of the days when people like the late Tony Momo,
yes.
of blessed memory, was Minister of Information.
Even the press council, the National
Press
Council
Act
is very clear about it.
And
so let people be educated.
Besides that,
yes.
just to add, if you permit, just add this, that
really?
It's not only in Nigeria that you have journalism. You have journalism practice in other parts of the other parts of the world. And that is not yes, exactly. I mean, there's nothing that is strange that is
happening here.
That is happening here.
Thank you, KK, for winning in, on this matter. Really, thank you. We really have to go. All right, that brings us to the end of the morning show today. Thank you for watching. I'm Steve Ayorinde. And
I am Kyari off here from our entire team here in Lagos, Nigeria. Enjoy the rest of your morning and, of course, the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Bye.